Okay, good afternoon. My clock reads 3 o'clock, so I'm going to call this meeting of the Audit and Finance Committee to order. It is November 16th, 2020, and we have our quorum such as it is with Commissioner Ariola and myself, the members of the committee. The rest of our Audit and Finance team is joining us virtually. So we're glad that you're all here. Without objection, we'll adopt the agenda. Any changes? Okay. And first order of business is approval of the minutes from September 23rd. Were there any corrections, additions? You're good with the minutes? Okay. So without objection, we'll approve those minutes, which brings us to our first pending referral on our agenda, the audit report for general government non-pension investments. And with that, I will turn it over to our auditor, Ms. Bigby. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Ariola. I would like to introduce our audit senior, Greg Robeson, who will present the general government non-pensions investment audit. This audit was added to our audit plan in December 2019. Once Greg goes through the audit and presents the audit findings and management action plans, we'd like to turn it over to the General Government Finance Director, Cynthia Ramos, who would like to say a few words, and then we'll turn it back over to you, Mayor, for any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bigby, Mr. Robertson, Ms. Ramos, glad we were with us.
Greg, go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen and then I'll get started here. Let's see if this works fine. Okay. Internal audit has completed its engagement, as Ms. Bigby mentioned, general government non-pension investments. I'm going to scroll here just as we go along. I don't want to make anybody dizzy by scrolling too fast. The Pension Investment Division of the Budget and Finance Department manages two non-pension related investment portfolios. They're valued at about $157 million as of September 30th, 2020. The investments in these accounts are held for various reasons, including operational needs, funds that help to are held in trust for exclusive uses also. In addition to those two funds, we also reviewed at management's request a fuel hedging program. It had a value of $410,000 as of September 30th. The audit objective for this audit was to examine the internal control environment and governance of the two non-pension investment portfolios, and then also the internal controls over the hedge fund itself. Our audit scope for this review included assessing the design and operating effectiveness of the investments and fuel hedging program during the period of October 1st, 2019 through September 30th, 2020. In performing the audit, we interviewed key staff and reviewed source documentation, including applicable laws, policies, procedures. Also, Pension Investment Committee meeting minutes. We reviewed transactions to test control effectiveness around deposits and withdrawals between the local banking account and the investment accounts. We assessed controls around the selection of investment banks and brokers. We assessed information technology general controls, such as controls over access to investments accounts and related third-party websites. And we reviewed the investment data based on the Budget and Finance internal reports. During the review, we noted transactions to and from the investment accounts were routine in nature. Though, however, we did find three areas where improvements in the control environment could be, or we recommend improvements. Basically, Pension and Investment Division should establish a investments-related user access management program, which I'll discuss in a few minutes. Also, a broker and dealer list wasn't maintained in compliance with the current policy. And then the non-pension investment related policies and procedures could be strengthened. And as always, we definitely want to thank everybody in the Budget and Finance Department for their professionalism and cooperation. Just a little bit of background here, not too much in detail, but the primary objectives of the investment activities in order is to safeguard the assets, provide liquidity, and return. There are two non-pension investment funds that were in scope. There's the operating surplus fund, which is it uses the capital and excess funds to provide additional funding for expenses. These are invested in the Florida State Board of Administration Prime account, and the Evergreen Cemetery Trust Fund, which is used for basically, losing my page here. For the exclusive care and maintenance of the cemetery grounds. The fuel hedging program is not considered an investment. I want to stress that. That's not considered an investment, but we also reviewed that. That is managed by Linwood Capital, who uses R.J. O'Brien as the clearing broker for the transactions, for the futures and options transactions. I'm going to skip past some of the related facts and figures because I believe on the agenda today also is presentations of similar material from the investments officer. During the audit was performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, the International Standard of Professional Practice of Internal Auditing, and ISACA IS Audit and Assurance Standards. Standards require that we plan and perform the engagement to provide sufficient detail, appropriate evidence to provide reasonable basis for our findings and conclusions. And we believe that the evidence obtained provides the reasonable basis for our observations and conclusions. Items that we identified that we hope management considered, that management is considered for improvement. The first item is the Pension and Investment Division should establish a investments related user access management program. Our review did not identify any irregular or inappropriate activity. However, 2 of the 4 investment related information systems had user accounts with the ability to bypass the segregation of duties controls. Our criteria in reviewing this was COSO, or the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations of the Treadway Commission. They defined the internal controls and including control activities such as segregation of duties as key components. Florida statute requires the investment policy to be in writing and provide the system of internal controls. And COBIT recommends the following as recommends best practices for segregation of duties and lease access privileges. The risk involved with not having a user access management program was that it will increase the risk of error and fraud, potential loss around non-pension investment activities. AICPA defines segregation of duties as basic building blocks for internal controls, and without these, fraud and error risks are far less manageable. Management provided an action plan. Basically, they will adopt the user access management program that includes periodic access reviews to ensure access is uniquely identifiable, minimum necessary to perform the job functions, and cannot bypass segregation of duties. And in cases where they cannot provide that segregation of duties, they will establish formal staff oversight roles. The other item we identified was as I mentioned, the current approved broker-dealer list is not maintaining compliance with the non-pension investment policy. Criteria is the policy itself, and basically the documentation wasn't there to support being added to the list. The management has agreed and is implementing a non-pension investment policy update. with the appropriate criteria and specifying method of timing of periodic updates. Last item is basically non-pension investment related policy procedures need strengthening. There were a few key areas, identifying in writing the key segregation of duties and management oversight. Basically, policy procedures related to the management of fuel hedging program do not provide sufficient detail on expected performance margins or trigger points that will result in exiting from the program. Documentation and key information reviewed or actions taken by the Pension Investment Committee should be better documented. Management is implementing the following action plan. They're going to review non-pension investment procedures and update as needed to include segregation of duties, roles, and responsibilities. Then they are also going to formalize the Pension and Investment Committee during FY21, including updating procedures as they relate to documenting committee meetings, including discussions and actions taken. That's a summary of the report. Ginger.
Thank you, Mr. Robeson. So Mayor, I would like to turn it over to the Finance Director, Cynthia Ramos.
Good afternoon, everyone, and Mayor. So I just want to go through the three findings. I guess, Greg, if you can, oh, Lee, did you want to say something?
I did. I just received a telephone call from a neighbor, Mr. O'Brien, who says he can't get access to the meeting. I just need to clarify that I can send him this link that I use to get in the meeting, and he'll be able to participate in the attendee mode, correct?
Mr. Manager, I will email you the meeting access information.
Great, thank you. I'm sorry for interrupting.
So I'll jump right into the first item. Greg, if you could take us back up to that one. So I just want to say thank you before I start to the City Auditor's Office for all their hard work, and also, excuse me, to the community builders in budget and finance that have worked hard on this. So with this one, the first issue, I just want to mention here that I think the result of this was that we had interim roles in the past 18 months or so that sort of compressed the review requirements of these roles. So we will be looking at making sure that now that I'm here and there's different bodies in the roles, that they're completely segregated from each other. So that was going to be taken care of probably sooner rather than later. And then if we can scroll down to the broker-dealer list. And so with this one, it's important to note that the investment policy is a bit outdated in how we use the broker-dealers here at the city. We don't use them often. Some of the criteria that has been listed here is very old and no longer in compliance with how the industry functions. So we'll be looking at holistically updating this whole policy over the next year to make sure that it reflects the correct items and a list of broker-dealers that we can turn to as needed. And it's just important to note that we don't use broker-dealers very frequently. So it's one of those things that we update as we need it, but we will make sure that our policy is more in line with that practice as we move forward. And lastly, with the non-pension investment related policies and procedures that need strengthening, we actually have just formalized our Pensions and Investment Committee. It was a committee that was very informal. It consisted of internal staff only, the finance director, the assistant finance director, and pensions and investment staff. We've now formalized it a bit more. It includes representatives from the city manager's office, from GRU, and our investment consultants. And our first meeting is actually scheduled for the first week of December. So we'll make sure that those meeting minutes are also more accurately saved, and that there's meetings and reports that can be reached through if needed. And also the fuel hedging program is currently not listed as part of our investment policy because it is not an investment of the city. It is a price risk management tool. So even though this was looked at here, that item, we will formalize how we track that item in a separate document. So Ginger, all done.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Ramos. And thank you again for your time and cooperation to all of the budget, finance, and accounting team. They were great to work with, and especially such difficult times. It was especially hard for finance recently. Mayor and Commissioner Ariola, I'd like to turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you all for that update. I've got one quick question. Ms. Bigby, I guess I'm assuming all of these have a May completion date, so no later than May. But I assume we'll be getting quarterly updates on the progress of these 3 items when you bring back your auditor's report?
Yes, Mayor, good question. We now present all of the open audit issues, the status of those issues every quarter. And if for some reason the issues become overdue, we would begin reporting them as overdue. That rarely happens. We're in touch with management, and the only time we would extend an issue due date is if there were some unforeseen circumstances that prevented them from completing an action plan for a certain amount of time. So we will continue to provide updates on these issues in December and again in March.
Okay, excellent. Because Ms. Ramos said that she expects the segregation of duties issue to be addressed sooner rather than later. So it would just be good for us and for all of our neighbors to know that had been sort of seen to and is already resolved, even though the other 2 might take a little bit more time. Commissioner, do you have any questions?
Mr. Mayor, those are my questions as well. I think that these are, I'm in agreement with the action plans that have been presented before the committee. And I too would like to see at least regular updates so that we can sort of be aware of them as they progress to the product. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody who put the effort into this, and I look forward to their resolution. So Madam Clerk, we'll turn it over to any members of the public that wish to comment on this issue. The action of the commission will just be to accept the report and forward the findings to the full city commission for their consideration.
If any members of the public would like to speak to this item, you may raise your hand in the Zoom meeting by dialing *9. I don't believe that we have any non-staff participants at the moment, but we could wait. And if anyone is trying to dial in.
Mr. Feldman, did you get word back from Mr. O'Brien that he was able to get in?
I have not. Thought I had his email address to send him the directions, and I apparently do not.
I'll just read the number out loud. If anyone would, you can always view the meeting on the city's website and broadcasting on channel 12. But if you'd like to dial into the Zoom meeting via phone, you can dial 1-312-626-6799. I'll say that one more time. That's 1-312-626-6799. And then the meeting participant number is 819-6937-8460. That's 819-6937-8460.
Okay, so we'll just give it a minute here in case anybody just got that information and is trying to get in.
I just found his email and sent it to him.
Okay. And again, if you're watching on Zoom, you can dial *9, correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I don't see any callers waiting at the moment, but we will let you know if anyone joins.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Maybe a nudge to me that this watching people sit here in silence is less exciting than watching Kyle Trask play football. Okay, let's go back to our next item. Without objection, Commissioner, we will advance that to the full City Commission for their consideration and look forward to those quarterly reports or those updates at our next quarterly meetings. Okay, the next item is performance reports for the City of Gainesville Operating Fund, General Employees Pension, Police Officers and Firefighters Pension, Retiree Health Insurance Trust Fund, Evergreen Cemetery Fund, and the Gainesville Fuel Hedging Program. Madam Auditor.
I think you punted that over to me, Mayor.
I'm sorry, Ms. Ramos?
Yes, okay, cool. So per the city's investment policy, we are required to submit quarterly investment reports to the city manager and to the audit finance committee. I am going to share my screen just to walk everyone through what these look like as soon as I figure out how to do that. Oh, I think I need permission.
You should be able to share your screen.
I think I figured it out. You'll all let me know when you can see that on your end.
Yeah,
You
we're
should
good.
see the investment policy.
Yes, ma'am. We can.
Highlighted section requiring the quarterly investment reports to be submitted. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the first one that I'm going to go over will be the general operating fund accounts, where as of September 30th, 2020, we have an ending account balance of 155 million. We earned 1.5 million over the past fiscal year with a rate of return of 1.18%. I'll just run through this, and then if there are any questions, I'll take them later. This is an overview of the City of Gainesville General Employee Pension Plan. And if we scroll right over to the third page, it'll give you the total asset number, which is 415, just shy, a little bit higher than 415 million, with a year-to-date return of 4.07%. Note that this does not include the investment of the POB proceeds. For the police and fire pension fund, if we scroll over to page 5, you'll see it's just over 243 million with a 7.1% for the fiscal year. The retiree health fund had a beginning market value of an ending market value of 59 million and a return of just over 0.98%. The Evergreen Cemetery Investment Performance Summary as of 9/30/2020, a total of 1.3 million with an annual return of 6.81%. And for our fuel hedging program, I just want to highlight that this was the attachment that was included in the agenda item, and that was not the correct attachment. This is actually the attachment that was supposed to show up on this section, and I believe that Jeff is on the line and he could walk us through this report. This is the first one that we are having together. Is he on and ready?
You should be entering right now.
Okay, perfect. And I'll stop sharing my screen unless he wants me to continue sharing the screen.
Now you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So this is the quarterly report for the fuel hedging program. The first section here describes what the program is for and what it is intended to accomplish with respect to increasing the budget certainty for petroleum fuels, diesel fuel, and gasoline that the city purchases using financial instruments to do that. And that the program is not an investment, and it is a tool to control cost. There is a policy in place that the city adopted for a maximum allowed hedge maturity. So currently, hedging is not permitted any further forward than 18 months forward currently. And there is also, if we could scroll up there a little bit, there is a maximum hedge ratio, which means that the financial hedges are not permitted to have a volume of more than 80% of projected fuel consumption from the city, and that's those numbers are given to me, and we figure those out. So you're currently limited to 80% of whatever the projected fuel consumption is for the next 18 months, and you can see there that it is in compliance for fiscal 21 and into 22 as well. And so we have here during the fourth quarter of the fiscal year, petroleum costs, not including the results of the hedge, were about $1.43 a gallon. If we add the hedging results, which added to the fuel cost by about 3 cents, they were approximately $1.46 per gallon on a weighted average basis versus a budget of $1.69 a gallon. And so there was actually a positive budget variance of about $19,000 for the quarter. And if we look forward, as of September 30th, there is a contingent positive future fuel cost of $154,000, and what that means is that is an unrealized loss as of September 30th. That has changed around as prices change. That number moves up and down, and so that is an unrealized loss over the period October 20 through February of 22 of about 7 cents a gallon. And again, that number, when the market moves up, that number becomes smaller and then actually becomes an unrealized gain, and vice versa. And so the next steps in the continuation of the program is to continue to accumulate new hedges for fiscal 22 according to the policy, and to maintain the size of the hedge in order to protect the city's petroleum fuel budget and to have their future fuel costs be more certain.
Thank you, Jeff. And that wraps up our high-level quarterly update. I've stopped sharing the screen in case there are any questions that William and I can address.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ramos. Commissioner?
Thank you. I just had, thank you for the detailed reports. Upon looking over at least, I just want to address the SBA Prime Fund account yield report. And I understand, there's been massive economic contraction due to the pandemic. And I just wanted to see if anybody could comment on sort of reactions to anything that we might need to do differently. Our account balances are on the whole very good, but the yields due to the economic contraction is at least a cause for, I think, monitoring going forward.
Ms. Ramos, anybody want to take that?
I think I see Mr. Feldman just unmuted himself.
Thank you. So I think Commissioner Ariola is correct that those returns certainly are okay in a time of economic contraction, but I think we need to look at alternatives other than the state of Florida SBA program. There are others out there. We do need to be cognizant, though, that we are very restricted in how we invest those funds under the state statute. So looking at our investment policy, I think it's prudent for us to look, and we should be looking on an ongoing basis to make sure that we are in the investment pieces that we're allowed to be in that can maximize our investments. Not going to see a great return compared to the SBA, but I think there might be some room for improvement.
Yeah, I mean, it's with a negative 30% GDP, just a very difficult financial position for, I think, every government. But like I said, our ending account balances are indicated that they're very good right now. So I'm very happy to see that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I've got a question about the hedging program. How many full months have we been using that hedging program? It's relatively recent.
We kicked off the program in July of 2020.
Okay, so 4 full months, give or take?
Jeff?
Let's see here. Let me get you an answer. Looks like we began the program. Let's see here. In July of this year. Yeah.
Okay. So that's not a big enough sample size for me to get concerned yet. You know, shortly after that, we got a bit of a price war breakout between OPEC and Russia, which has kept prices artificially low. All to say that the purpose for the hedging program in general sort of met its most unlikely set of circumstances. But it is something that I'm interested in keeping our eye on, and you know, whether these sort of lower fuel costs become the new normal, or it's sort of just a market disruption, awaiting things to stabilize and get back to where they are expected to be. You know, and that's hard to say right now, as long as those two are going at it. But you know, obviously we'd like to see a positive return on that program, and we're not there yet. But again, 4 months is not enough of a sample size for me to hit the panic button. Okay, so we will, Commissioner, accept the reports and forward them to the City Commission for their consideration. And we'll open it up to the public if any members of the public want to speak to this. Again, if you're on Zoom, you can just raise your hand, *9. If you want to call in, it's 312-626-6799. I'll say that again, 312-626-6799. And then the meeting number is 819-6937-8460. Again, the meeting number is 819-6937-8460. Madam Clerk?
I don't see anyone raising their hand to speak, but we will wait one moment. Again, if you're in the meeting and you'd like to share a comment, please dial *9. Looks like we have one caller. Caller, you are unmuted. You should be free to share your comment. You have 3 minutes. You'll need to unmute yourself, I think. Hello?
Hello, Mr. Poe.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Brian O'Brien calling. Hi, Mr. Arioli. I appreciate the opportunity to comment. I would like to notify you, and I've already notified Lee Feldman, that I object to this meeting, which is not being broadcast on the advertised city website. There is no live streaming available. With that caveat said, the first thing I had for today's meeting was the first item that you had on the agenda regarding old minutes, the minutes from September 23rd. I object to the minutes of September 23rd. There was clearly a conversation during that meeting, which the clerk accurately reported, that the city was to arrange a follow-up discussion with myself and Ms. Boyd of Purvis Gray and Company. No one from the city has reached out, and there's been no attempt to have that meeting. The subject of my questions that led Mr. Poe to offer me that private meeting were regarding item number 200353, the 2019 external auditors Purvis Gray audit of the city financial statement. The financial statements contain irregularities which have been buried and hidden from the public, and I object to the continuation of the same policies, denying the public the ability to see what's really happening with the city finances. David, you and I met about this, and you told me that you would help me straighten it out. I got an $11,000 invoice when I asked to see information that was provided in one day for $1 last year. I would appreciate a response to my public records request, VMB 073120, and expect that Mr. Poe once again will promise me to a meeting to take up that issue.
Do you conclude, Mr. O'Brien?
I'm waiting for your answer, sir.
Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have any other callers?
I do not see any other callers waiting in the meeting, and if I could take the liberty, I have been notified by broadcast that we did expect to stream this meeting, and we've been having technical difficulties on and off for the last week, so we do apologize for that inconvenience, but the meeting is being aired on Channel 12. But I don't see any other callers waiting to speak.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Ms. Kessler, you advertised that it would be streamed on your website, and you once again have failed. So this is an illegal meeting.
No,
I
Mr. Brown, thank you.
that
Ms.
Mr. Poe
Kessler, you
answer my
can
question.
terminate the caller. This is not an illegal meeting. It was noticed and it is being broadcast, and we are meeting in person. And it absolutely meets the standards. Technology sometimes fails us. It's not Ms. Kessler's fault. It's no individual's fault. And we'll try to work it out as quickly as we possibly can. To Mr. O'Brien's public records request, I think he asked for an update on that. And so if somebody from the clerk's office can give him an update on that public records request, and also I believe that the outside auditor from Purvis and Gray did indicate at the last meeting that she'd be willing to meet with Mr. O'Brien after the meeting at some point to answer questions that he might have. And so we'll just reiterate that. I don't know if they have been unable to find a date or a time. I think Mr. O'Brien was out of town for a while, and I don't know other people's schedules, but that's certainly, I'm not the keeper of the calendar or schedules for all those folks, and so if the clerk's office can just try again to arrange that meeting, then that would be appreciated.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just
Go ahead.
as a response, I'm always happy to help our residents navigate public records requests. I did follow as we conversed, so that update, as the mayor said, should be forthcoming. So just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that was public records request 073120. Okay, thank you very much. Our next item is the fourth quarter amendment to our FY20 budget. So this is the last quarter of the last fiscal year ending on September 30. Ms. Ramos.
Yes, so this is our final FY 2020 budget amendment that's required by Florida statute, and I will transfer this over to Ms. Fiore, and I believe that she needs the number that ends in 8852 unmuted in order for her to give her presentation.
Ms. Fiore, you should be unmuted now.
Good afternoon, Karen Fiore. Are you able to see my screen?
We are, but you might need to bigify it a little bit, Ms. Fiore. It's kind of small.
Okay.
That's great.
Wonderful. So as mentioned, this is the last amendatory for fiscal year 2020. You'll see some items that are being repeated here, so bear with me. I want to make sure that we get as much detail as possible to you. There's also been a request to provide a little bit more information about the GPD additional expenditures here. So I'm going to give you a little bit more information that's provided on the screen in front of you. The first couple pages of this document is just a high-level summary of the recommended budget transactions that we're asking the commission to approve. In the remainder of your packet, you will see all budget transactions, those that have already been approved, ones that are allowable by the city manager, and then, of course, these that we're asking you to approve. And we go by fund. You can see here the page number will tell you what page in your backup you can find the actual transactions per fund. So the first fund is the general fund. In late 2020, we updated our cost allocation plan. That plan is what provides us what the indirect costs we should charge all of our other funds. It turns out that there was a reduction to some of those funds, so we reduced the revenue to the general fund by $432,000. In fiscal year 20, we were required to pay the full amount of the property tax on the Catalyst building. We paid this in full, however, knowing that we were going to receive a refund, and that happened in late 2020. So this transaction actually put that budget back into the fund balance. So in a previous amendment, you saw where we increased the budget, and here we're just putting that back to fund balance on the refund. We transferred $423,000 to cover GPD payroll shortages. So a couple things happened here. The question was, are these related to COVID expenditures? No, the overtime related to COVID expenditures should have hit a different fund, Fund 140. So they should not be recorded here. What's happening here, due to the FOP contract, we already knew that we were going to have to transfer some budget from our contingency wage account. So that was already pre-planned. So then we transferred that, as well as they have quite a bit of temporary staffing and not enough budget. So as the year went on, that temporary expenditures ate up on their salary savings, and therefore additional funds were required. As you do probably recall, in fiscal year 21 budget process, we tried to address some of these issues with temporary staffing with GPD, and we reallocated their budget. So hopefully some of this will be fixed for the fiscal year 21. We transferred $75,000 from our technology administration fund to the city manager's office for payroll shortages. This was due to new contracts that came through with the city manager for staffing. It's important to note that the technology administration fund, this is a general fund funded fund. So it's really just general fund dollars. So again, the city manager's office salary was short for this amount, and we transferred it over. We transferred from our facility capital improvement fund a little over $87,000. And this is, the reason for this is that we want to put all of the expenditures in one fund if it requires that to be recorded as an asset. So our accounting department has been working really hard. I mentioned this in prior amendments, that if you have a capital project that has an asset involved in it, all of those expenditures should be sitting in one unit, in one fund, to make it really clear and clean for our audit and our CAFR. So that's what we're doing. And you're going to see this note repeated in multiple funds doing the same thing. So we may have paid out an expenditure over multiple funds, then accountant said, hey, don't do that. And so we're just transferring those funds just to that one fund. It doesn't mean that the project was underfunded. Again, it's just a transfer to one fund. We recognized donation from the Community Foundation of North Central Florida and allocated this budget for a purchase of a canine. And again, for the asset, we transferred stormwater management utility to record fixed assets. Moving on to Fund 103, which is our Urban Development Action Grant Fund. Let me scroll down here a little bit. This also was a transfer for our capital asset recording. We transferred from fund balance in our federal law enforcement contraband fund, Fund 109, a little over $43,000 for additional expenditures for the property and evidence renovation. In our miscellaneous special grant fund, we set up a relief fund grant for the housing and community development for over $350,000. We were able to zero out inactive public work grants for over $859,000. When I state that we closed out grants, it does not mean that we did not receive the correct funding. It simply could have meant that we had budget left over, but we already collected all the revenue and we've already expended everything for that grant. So we make sure that those two numbers match, and then anything that's still sitting out there on a budget line, we want to get rid of that. So that's what I mean by we close out grants and we zero out those budgets so that no one can spend on those lines. We increased the Pop-Up Lab AARP Community Challenge Grant for $10,000. So I believe that grant now is up to a total of $20,000. In our Transportation Concurrency Fund, Fund 116, here we recognized revenue and allocated for multiple projects, and you can find all of those projects listed out by name on page 15. I did not list them out each individually here, but again, it's over $385,000. And as mentioned in each quarterly report, we had to correct some carry forwards in the amount of $112,000. In Fund 123, this is our miscellaneous revenue fund. We recognized revenues and allocated for Operation CARE, UF Research Grant, the Hogtown Fair, the Downtown Cultural Events, and Fire Special Programs. So all of these items totaled $47,215. Again, we receive the revenue, we recognize it, and then we provide expenditure budget in the same amount. Our capital project fund, we recognized $90,000 that came from the cost recovery for the fire that was out at the Family Pools and Spa Center. So here, GFR has billed for this. I haven't looked as of today if we received that revenue yet, but they needed to update their hazmat material, their clothing. So that's what they're using this $90,000 for. And then we transferred the other side of the stormwater management utility for the fixed assets recording for $20,000. In Capital Project Fund 332, again, we corrected some carry forwards in the amount of $93,000. Our local option gas tax, this is also a transaction needed to put all of the asset in one fund, as mentioned earlier. In our facility maintenance recurring fund, here, the first item, the $207,000, again, this is due to recording assets properly. And then the second note here, we allocated $44,000 for commission chambers COVID safety measures. So this would have been probably your plexiglass, for an example. Your equipment replacement fund, we took fund balance from this fund, which is general fund funded expenditures, and we transferred that to GPD for shortage in their operating for $53,000. The capital improvement revenue note of 2016. Again, here's the other side of your asset allocation. Those were both, one for $243,000 and one for $255,000. Your wild spaces, public places. Here we transferred the $25,000 to Fund 359. Again, this is to allow for fixed assets. Sorry to be a broken record. In your capital improvement revenue note 2020, we transferred from the general fund for City Hall renovations of $87,000. And from the facility maintenance fund for $207,000. Again, putting everything in the correct bucket for the asset recording. Fund 413, the same issue for the assets. The only other item to note here is that we had to reduce the personnel service budget. The adopted budget was the wrong amount. You know, we try really hard to make sure that everyone is in the right seats, but sometimes if a unit received double funding, we don't want to keep that funding sitting out there. So when we true up everything, we looked and we said, oh, there was double position booked here or budgeted here. So we released that funding so the departments don't have access to it. So that's what happened there. We corrected some carry forwards as well. The Fund 414, your stormwater management. Here it looks like everything, again, was due to the asset recording. Fund 420, this fund was impacted due to our new cost allocation plan. So they actually, we reduced what they had to pay to the general fund by $75,000. Same thing happened in our RTS fund, Fund 450. We reduced the cost allocation by $301,000, and we were able to close out a bunch of grants here as well in RTS for $67,000. Our fleet management, you've talked about this earlier today, the $300,000 for the hedging expense. And there was a cost allocation as well for this fund, reduction of $55,000. We already talked about the transfer from the technology fund to GPD. This is the other side of that, as well as the city manager payroll shortages of $75,000. This is the other side of that transaction. Technology capital improvement fund, we corrected some carry forwards. And also there was an adopted salary budget that was incorrect, so we reduced that as well. And then in Fund 601, we transferred fund balance from this fund. This is our retiree health insurance trust fund for the implicit rate subsidy due to GASB 43 in the amount of $3.3 million. And then the remainder of your document lists out per line each budget transaction. Would you like me to stop sharing my screen before questions or continue sharing?
Why don't you leave it up, Ms. Fiore, just in case we have any questions, we can easily go back to the screen. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments?
The only question I had was in regards to the closing of the inactive public works grant fund. I just wanted to hear a little bit more about that.
I didn't hear the remainder of the question. Public Works Grant Fund, and then what did you say?
I just wanted to hear comments on the closing. It says the fund was inactive and it was closing the account to the tune of about $800,000, $893,000. I'm trying to.
So you want to know the listing of what funds or accounts those were? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So those can all be found in your document on page. Sorry. Page 12, I believe, it starts with Fund 116. No, miscellaneous 115, sorry. It's hard to go back and forth. So one item was fire station wind retrofit. That closed for $96,000. Another item was the brownfield pilot grant, which was $161,000. There was a large amount for the Northeast 19th Drive, which is an LAPA grant for $473,000. Again, this is existing budget that did not have any revenue tied to it, so we can't keep that budget out there. So if there's any additional expenditure budget, we have to make sure we zero that out to prevent any use of those funds. So perhaps when these were set up, perhaps maybe it was like $1 million that we were supposed to get, and we only got 500 and some thousand. So the grant ended just on that 500 and some thousand. So we have to release that remaining 473. It's not a loss to the city. It's just that we never had revenue to match that expenditure. So we have to get rid of that expenditure side, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Those were the big ones that hit.
Thank you, Commissioner. Since we updated our cost allocation methodology, it seems like, I mean, those are some pretty big numbers. Those are some pretty big differentials. Are there other departments that are contributing more to that? Or how's that washing out in the overall sort of general fund budget?
I would have to pull up all of the accounts. I don't recall many that increased. A lot of them did decrease, including the GRU contribution that went down as well. I can provide you with a detailed listing of which ones increased and which ones decreased, but I couldn't just tell you over the phone right now.
No,
but I would be happy to provide.
That's okay. I think what I'd like to do, Ms. Fiore, and I'm sort of speaking into the city manager's good ear here. I'd like to have that discussion purely as an informational, sort of educational session during one of our budget meetings to understand how the cost allocation methodology has shifted the sort of expenditures for different departments, and what that's meant overall, and including like, has it just been costing us less to provide these services than we were budgeting for? Like, is it more of a true cost allocation, or is it that some departments were using more of those services and paying less than the value, and others, I think like Public Works was a big one, like around $300,000 were paying more than they were utilizing, and it's been sort of trued up from this new methodology. So that's my ask right now. I mean, they're just a lot bigger shifts than I expected. Like I would have expected, in the sort of $10,000 to $30,000 range, and it seems like I was off by 10x. And again, not that there's anything wrong, but I just want to understand it better. So that's probably a discussion for January, February, something like that, when we do have some of our early budget discussions. Okay, Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I don't think I had any other questions, and so the recommendation is to forward this to the full commission with the accompanying resolution for the fourth quarter mandatory budget. And with that, we will move to any members of the public that wish to comment on this item. Madam Clerk.
Any members of the public would like to speak to this item, they can dial *9 to raise their hands. We do have one individual who wishes to speak. If you'd like to unmute yourself, you can go ahead. Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, you may go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. Mayor Poe and Commissioner Ariola. Brian O'Brien again for the record. Thank you, Ms. Fiore, for your detailed presentation. I'm glad to see the city starting to get their books in a more professional order. And I would like to ask you regarding the grants that you reported on that you're now zeroing out. I appreciate that the accounting is catching up now. And I'd like to know, were you also responsible for the grant reporting on these now closed grants?
Mr. O'Brien, why don't you finish your comments and then we'll get your questions answered after your 3 minutes is up so you don't waste time on that.
Right, I'm familiar with your technique, sir. So I would like to know who was responsible for the grant reporting, which is required at different levels for different types of grants, and if they were reported and properly closed, as well as the financial reporting that Ms. Fiore gave us, and who was responsible for that?
Was there anything else, Mr. O'Brien?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other callers, Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor, no other callers at this time.
Okay, I don't know, Ms. Fiore or Ms. Ramos or Mr. Feldman, which of you is best qualified to answer who's responsible for grant reporting?
So I think I can answer all 3 questions together. So grant reporting is done by the department that is the recipient of the grant. So if it's a COPS grant, then that's done through GPD. If it's a stormwater grant, that would be done through Public Works. All the grants are ultimately audited, both by our independent outside auditor, which has the single audit report, which is at the end of the CAFR, and the auditing entities also complete an audit if they so choose and report any findings. Since I've been here, I'm not aware of any issues from either the external auditor that we hire or any agency that has reported any issues with the grants or the grant reporting.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bigby, is there anything you wanted to add just from the audit side?
No, nothing to add, Mayor, except that the public records requests have been addressed. Unfortunately, there are some fee estimates that would need to be paid because there are some private information and potentially other confidential information that would need to be redacted. So just to go through the emails and documents and do that review takes a lot of time.
Okay, and so I think what we always try to do in that case is work with the requester to let them know if they want to narrow the scope of their search or be more specific with particular documents, that can save quite a bit of time and ultimately cost as well. So
we all have been working together with the city clerk's office because it does impact so many departments at the city. So the city clerk has done an excellent job aggregating everyone's information and sending out replies to the requesters.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda then is general public comment. There's nobody in chambers, Madam Clerk, so it's over to you.
Again, if anyone is calling in to the meeting and would like to share a public comment, you may dial *9 to raise your hand. We do have one caller. Caller, you may unmute yourself. And you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Bigby, I appreciate your comments on the PRR VMB 073120. I would be happy to meet with you and do an inspection of the records. I really would rather refer you back to the original request, which was for the city of Gainesville to allow me to examine all public records in possession of Purvis Gray and Company. I did not ask for anything confidential. I did not ask for anything to be redacted. I did not ask for an $11,000 invoice. I appreciate the professionalism you're bringing to the city, and I would appreciate an honest response to that public records request. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody else on the line?
No, Mr. Mayor, not at the moment.
Okay, then that takes us to member comment. Commissioner?
No comment, just everyone stay safe, stay vigilant, and thank you for all of your work helping us for this meeting.
Absolutely, and our next meeting date will be actually just around the corner, December 8th. At that meeting, we will get our auditor's quarterly update with the status of pending referrals, as well as some other items. Ms. Bigby, did you have anything to add?
No, Mayor, I just wanted, well, I did have one thing to add. For the public records request, that was, even though it was sent to my office, that is a finance item. So finance did review that request. They did gather all of the documents that would potentially be responsive, the amount of time to review those documents, and a detailed fee request was provided. So I actually don't have access to and am not in possession of those documents. That is a finance item, and then finance did handle that request and provided a response with the fee estimate.
Okay, thank you. So we will, it's up to the individual's decision whether to move forward with that or narrow the scope of the request to bring down the cost. And Ms. Ramos can work with him to figure that out. Okay, well, thank you all very much. Ma'am, what's your name? I want to thank you publicly. Miss Wilson. I want to thank Miss Wilson. She's hanging out in the chambers with us today and helping us follow our COVID protocol, making sure everything's clean and safe and sanitary. So Ms. Wilson, we appreciate you putting yourself on the line and being here with us. We are thankful that you had a quiet afternoon. And with that, we are adjourned.